Torrey Snow.
WBAL News Radio 1090 and FM 101.5.
One of the challenges of Baltimore City involves the fact that many of the crime is perpetrated by juveniles. Many of the crimes, they're involving children. I mean, as a caller earlier said, people between the ages of 17 and 26. And it really has demanded that we take a much harder look at the structures that are in place to help the development of children and to keep children from getting involved in lives of crime. And there are a number of institutions, depending on your philosophical belief on these things, we've talked about it here on the program, but I am a huge believer that the family unit is a critical part of a child's life. As a matter of fact, I am more of the opinion that absent a strong family unit, there's not a whole lot that a community can do to really guarantee a productive outcome. Even with a family unit, it's very, very difficult to turn out a decent human being for society, right? It takes a lot of work, energy, and effort. But doesn't mean that there aren't players that are involved with this. The other component of guiding our children along, it involves our educators, right? It involves our schools, whether it's in the form of private education, public education, home education. But in a place like Baltimore City, in which we have the unique situations and circumstances that we have, there is an incredible amount of weight that is borne by our educators in trying to keep children off the streets. And so a lot of money goes into our school system, and with I don't think anyone would deny that the results are lackluster at best, but it doesn't mean that there aren't good people that are doing the best that they can to try to make the most of the really difficult circumstances they face in Baltimore City. Among those are two individuals, Preston and Jose Torres. And these are two individuals that they are members of the Baltimore Teachers Union. And actually, I wanted to bring them on to the program, and they're joining us now because we're going to talk about issues related to the school. But for context, we talk about the teachers' unions quite a bit, and you may not be aware of this unless you're kind of in the know, but there is an internal process by which they determine their leadership and all of those things like that. I'm not necessarily interested in weighing in on that much per se, but these are individuals that if things, if they're able to be successful in their election, they will have a key impact on the stance and the role that the Baltimore Teachers Union is going to play in public policy. So, Mr. Preston, Mr. Torres, thank you guys both for joining the program. And I guess I'll start with you, Mr. Preston. I think you're running for the chair of the Teachers Union. Can you give us an idea of, like, a real quick summary? What is the state of teaching? What is it like for an educator in Baltimore City? If you can give us a very brief summary of your assessment of that.
Again, thank you for having me out. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm at a pitch competition with my students right now, so they're pitching at Samsung, so it's an amazing thing. So I am running for president of the Baltimore Teachers Union.
Okay.
And here's the thing: the state of teachers is ever in flux, but currently, teachers are really tired right now. There's a lot put on the plate. There's a lot going on. Not just teachers, paraprofessionals, related service providers, the entire gambit of educators, the entire education family is going through a lot right now. There's a lot as far as what's being asked of teachers and paras. There's a lot being asked as far as responsibilities, and as you say, finding ways to guide students through difficult times as well is, again, becoming more and more a task than it has in previous years.
Jose Torres, you're joining as well, and I'm curious, safety is something that does come up. It comes up quite a bit on our program. Are teachers safe in Baltimore City schools, and is there more that can or could be done to ensure a safe teaching environment?
Hi, Torrey. Thank you for having us on. Well, sure. I actually chair the safety committee with the Baltimore Teachers Union. It's one of the things that we've been focusing on as far as keeping not just teachers safe, students safe, everyone in the building safe. That's something that's kind of the focal point of what we do. Obviously, one of the things that we want to look at is if the teachers feel unsafe, we need to determine what those reasons are. And part of the reason is that we have some students that need some guidance. They need to be redirected, if you will. And so that's where I've been focusing on something that's called the Code of Conduct. And so I've been actually pitching, I've actually been talking with people on the council in hopes that we can get the district to, we're trying to get the district to work on that Code of Conduct because it's too soft. And so we need to establish more solid rules for the students. Because if the students have a nice, structured education building to work in, they will thrive. They will grow from that. Right now, it's been kind of chaotic.
Mr. Preston, last week there was a stabbing of a student, and as we got more and more information about it, it appears that there was bullying involved, not to mention there were weapons recovered from the school. What can you tell us about what's necessary to ensure that these things aren't happening? We'll start with the bullying, for example. What role do educators play in addressing bullying in a context like Baltimore City, where it's not just a matter of, putting kids in the locker room, but could involve actual physical violence against a student?
Right. Well, as you can imagine, educators on the front line, teachers, paraprofessionals, related service providers, we see these students inside the classroom, in the hallways, in the lunchroom, even coming in and out of the building. There's a lot of issues with students not necessarily having an opportunity to find the right amount of services, the right amount of contact. And yeah, there are situations that spill over from neighborhoods into schools, especially bullying. But we find that bullying, it didn't just exist in a vacuum. There's things that created that situation that allowed that to perpetuate. There are things that we could do better as a district, and we can do better as a union to fight those things. Again, making sure the after-school programming is adequately staffed, making sure that the health service providers have an opportunity to talk to kids, because a lot of times there are red flags that continue to fly for these students, and they just go unanswered because we're understaffed. And the staff who is working on these things are a lot of times overtasked. You're going to find paraprofessionals out there working their behinds off to support students who really need more professional support, and that's from professional service, related service providers, people who specialize in these things, because these kids need as many supports as possible. And if you're asking already overtaxed para or already overtaxed teacher, then we're really providing a disservice for our kids.
We're speaking with Harry Preston and Jose Torres, running for president and vice president for the Baltimore Teachers Union. Mr. Torres, a lot of money goes into the Baltimore City school system. I mean, we were talking more than $18,000 per capita spending. Many people perceive the teachers union as just persistently asking for more and more money. Does that cycle change under potential new leadership with the teachers union?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk with the city council about was to see just how much the city was paying the district in terms of dollars. It turns out that the majority of the money the district receives, they get it from federal funds. So I think, as one of the councilmen told me, is that they really don't have a lot of weight to throw on the table when it comes to trying to influence the district. There's a lot of money, as you say, that's going into it, sure. I know that a lot of it's coming from federal, so you're talking Annapolis. So that's why a lot of times people need to go down to Annapolis to lobby down there. Yes, there's a lot of money that's flowing. I don't necessarily know where it's going. That's one of the things that I would like to find out. I think everyone has a curiosity as to exactly where all this money is going, because there's a lot of money being spent per student, and the test results should be much better. And of course, the quality of the schools need to be a lot better.
Mr. Preston, there is a bit of a sense that the teachers union has become kind of the anti-parent sentiment that's more of a nationwide sentiment. And I think even, on this program, people have indicated they don't feel a great deal of confidence that the teachers unions are necessarily interested in a healthy relationship with parents. What is your response to people that just see the teachers union as a political wing that's more interested in indoctrinating children than actually, building partnerships and supporting education in the school system?
Yeah, I find that a kind of a tricky conversation, because as a parent of two Baltimore City kids and one more on the way, I believe there's an ultimate connection that has to be made as teachers first, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we're having that continual conversation with parents, because otherwise it's impossible to do our jobs. I can't imagine a single para out there who does not start to build relationships with parents and families. Now, as far as the Baltimore Teachers Union, as of late, they've gotten more away from the family-centered work, and we're hoping to return that back. So if you're looking at the asset map of what it's going to take to get our schools back on track, it's going to take all of us, parents, teachers, administrators, and families. Without those families, without the support of those families, how can we even begin to have a conversation about getting our schools moving forward?
So to follow up with that, Mr. Torres, how do you build that trust? Because a lot of trust has been broken, specifically with the lockdowns and not going to school, virtual learning, and a lot of parents. I mean, I know we had a bit of a unique situation here in Maryland, but how do you go about making the argument that the teachers union is actually wanting to partner with the community and you know, not necessarily just support its own interests?
Well, I mean, we have to make those connections. We can't live in a bubble. As it stands right now, the current BTU leadership, they tend to live in a bubble. We need to make those connections. We need to be out there on the ground. We need to be in the schools. That's why, you know, we're with the Unity slate. And that's why we want to encourage everyone out there, teachers that are listening, to put your weight behind, put your vote towards the Unity slate. We're going to be actually the ones that are going to be in the schools. We're going to make those connections with people in the community. Everyone's a stakeholder. It's going right back to, everything goes right back to the schools. I'm sorry?
And Jose, if I could share for a second, you have to look at some of the members that we're working with currently. Someone like me who sits on the CDC in Upton, who is also treasurer in a lot of different organizations, sits on the board of a lot of organizations in these communities. It's not that we're just doing this now because of election time. This is what we've always done. So if you look at the members that we're talking about members who are teachers, who are paras, who are related service providers, who have been living in these communities and working in these communities for decades. It's nothing new to us. Now, again, a lot of us have been doing this for a period of time, longer than many of the people we're talking about have even been in the education field or even been related with BCPS.
So one last question. I wasn't going to bring it up, but a texter asked it, and it's something I am interested in knowing. The texter asks, would your guest be for a complete financial audit of the public school system? And I think in this context, Baltimore City. What are you guys' stance on a overhaul or complete external audit of where all of these resources are going? We'll start with you, Mr. Torres.
Well, that's a question I'd love to put to the membership, because as a union, that's just something that we all have to stand in unison.